Looks stunning already. I could have made a mistake here because I've come to the right hand side of Steetley Pier, which is where I was the other day. Problem that I've got now is that I'm walking along the beach. I'm going to be putting footmarks in this direction. Not ideal. There was kind of a band of cloud and it didn't look like we were going to get the sun really popping through. Shows how wrong I was. So the sun has come up clearly and lovely. However, I walked from the far side of Steetley and you can see my footprints here, so it's adjusted my composition slightly. Still some lovely light coming through, so I'm going to have to crack on. I'm going to go over here and try and get some wider angle shots of this pier. That sun's just coming through lovely now, and I'm trying to very quickly get a shot using these small pools of water that have been left here. I've not quite got the right composition. I'm going to try and just adjust this slightly. I'll be back in a second. I'm rushing because this tide is on its way in. And I want to try and get a shot whilst the sun's here. The light's coming onto the end of the pier. I don't know if you can see in the distance. And I've got these old groins and these big breakers coming in. I've got the wrong lens on. And I've left my camera bag back over there. I've got the wide angle. I would have preferred to have had the 24-70. But we're going to have to work with it. Let's get it done. Oh God. Gee, that tide's coming in fast. Gonna get in amongst this a little bit more. Try and get some better wave motion here. Can you see behind? The North Sea. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. I'm going to have to go back and get my bag. I need the 24-70. These breakers are beautiful. Look at them. Absolutely stunning. It's such a fresh morning. And moving around, I'm not even cold. It really is. That sun's really picked up the temperature very quickly. I'm just giving you a 360 here. Just to show you how awesome this place is this morning. And I'm away. I'm going to race across this beach. And when I say race, I mean stroll gently. There's no racing in my fat ass. I've wreaked devastation on this scene this morning with my chaotic planning. But as I talked to you last time, my aim's really to come and shoot this a lot more often. Absolutely no need for those gloves right now. The sun's really bright now. Going to move a little bit closer down to the pier again and shoot some long exposures. We've got all of these groins here which make fantastic foreground detail, and although the tide's not quite far enough in for some of the areas, I'm going to have a little explore, see if I can come up with something. It has to be said that when you're carrying your gear around on sandy beaches, there's a really strong argument for moving over to mirrorless. Got 3 or 4 lenses in here this morning. Just doing my first test shots with the Lee Super Stopper, and wow, that sun is bright. I shall turn around this way. Right, a little bit better. Make sure I am focused. There we go. Now, my exposure was 1/125th at f8, which means that with the Super Stopper on, which is a 15-stop filter, I am now going to have a 4-minute exposure. Now, this composition's not ideal because the groins are intersecting the pier, and I don't like that, lacks clarity. But I've got this little bow of water in front, just testing it out. Let's have a look at it, see what it looks like. The only problem is with these 4-minute exposures is it takes quite a long time to get a few test shots. I'm really not sure I actually want this Super Stopper on either, really, because there's some lovely breakers and some nice light catching them, but there's no cloud, no interest, so I'm trying to do something a little bit more graphic to squeeze those final few shots out of my time down here. Now I'm trying a couple of different compositions here. I'm in a portrait orientation and I found a small pool with a curve at the bottom looking out towards Steetley in the background. Portrait orientation, as I say, and the idea here is to use the pool as a little bit of foreground interest. Now I've not gone really kind of modern and punchy and put that really close in and use the wide angle. I'm still on the 20-40-70, so I'm wide enough at the wider end, but yes, we're going to have to see what this looks like. We're going to make that water very ephemeral and milky. That sun is so bright in my eyes this morning now. These breakers are still coming in. Stood again, well back from the tripod, and I'm being careful not to move about too much. I'm now regretting putting on this big Helly Hansen down jacket. It was about -2 this morning, and now it must be around 7 or 8 degrees. It's really warmed up very quickly with the heat of that sun. Just waiting patiently. Photography, it's a waiting game. There are lots of different compositional, I was going to say tools, and I'm not really liking that word, but there are lots of different compositional ideas that you can use. I think the most important thing of all, though, is to look at the shot that you've taken, look at the scene, and see whether or not you are creating balance. Most of the time, for most landscape photography, balance works well. Now, when we move away into things like fashion and editorial photography, sometimes it's good to create tension in those images by some slightly obscure compositional arrangements. I prefer landscapes to have a feeling of subtlety to them, something that's pleasant to look at. I'm going to have to check this out 1 minute. Can you see me? In the background, it's doing its long exposure. I'm just going to check the timer now. The thing is with using the super stopper is that light levels will change quite a lot during your exposure. And that's what's just happened here, because my exposure of 4 minutes, my original calculation at 1/125th, has now adjusted. So the amount of light coming through must have dropped during that exposure, and the end result is that the shot is slightly underexposed, particularly in the foreground. So I'm now having to set this away again, and assuming that light levels will remain consistent throughout, I'm going to have to allow for 6 minutes or so just to lift the exposure at the bottom of the frame. Now that's all well and good, but that's 10 minutes to try and get a shot here, and if this isn't quite right, I then have to shoot again. Got a few friends that really don't like long exposure photography for exactly that reason. They just don't have the patience for it. Just shooting these groins here in the distance with a very simple composure. Very simple composure? Composition? Blended composure? Composition? And exposure together? Who knows? The tide's coming in quickly now, so I'm being careful. My bag's over there, hoping this doesn't get washed away. So I'm watching this. I've got a couple of minutes, and I'm going to try and get this shot in the bag. Whoa, here we go. She's coming in fast. Oh, that could mess up this composition nicely. Well, check my focus there. There we go. That composition's not worked out quite as I anticipated. I knew at the time of really kind of starting to frame the shot that I wanted to go tighter on the composition, and I should have put the 70 to 200 on. But with the tide coming in, meant trying to find a patch of dry sand where I wasn't going to get any vibration at all. Whoa! That sun is still so bright. It has been a fantastic morning today. Really enjoyed myself down here for the past hour or so. Hopefully, I may have a couple of shots in the bag that are interesting enough. Now, conditions were interesting at the start. I didn't think we were going to get the sun, then we did, then it really came away very quickly. The cloud cover, which was predicted, just never really happened, so we didn't get all of that light bounce back. There was meant to be around 50% cloud cover this morning. If I show you, yeah, not exactly 50%, more like 0%. What are the takeaway tips from this morning? Well, first of all, I think to arrive earlier than I did again. I made the mistake of leaving my camera bag over in a different place while I wandered to explore and get a look at some different angles, and that left me without the 20-40-70 at a time when the light was probably at its best. Just frustrating. So what do we take away from today, as I was just talking about on the beach? Well, first of all, it's nice to play around with that wide angle. As I mentioned, I've got that big Kim Kardashian butt end of that Steetley pier with the wide angle filling my frame, and hopefully that's a shot that's going to look good. I'm going to pull some shadow detail out from underneath that pier as well, and add a little bit of tonal contrast in post-processing and make that pier pop out a little bit. I didn't get the beautiful clouds that I really wanted that were going to reflect that warm sunlight coming to the far right hand side. That didn't happen today, but it might do another morning, so we're going to have to come back again and keep shooting until I get the shot that I desperately want.